All right, it's 10 a.m. Good morning, everybody, and welcome on behalf of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. I'd like to thank you for joining this event. No doubt you're here because you're interested in the changes that are taking place with our rules of cooperation, and you are here because you want to level up professionalism, deepen your understanding, and just overall do a great job out there in the field. I'd like to thank Kim Spencer and Sandra Wyant for their time for being here. I'll introduce them shortly. My name is Josh Bath. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams Elite Realty. I'm in my 30th year. I'm excited to be in this seat, asking questions and moderating. Today, if you have any questions, again, as I mentioned earlier, put them in the Q&A section. That's where your voice is going to be heard. So put them in there, and that's where we will be going. There is a presentation first, a slide presentation, which with a little luck, it's going to cover the bulk of your questions. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A so that we can have plenty of time to dive into the questions that are coming through. This is a big topic, and I'm sure many of you have great questions, but we're going to do our best to get to as many of them as we can. I think that's a tall order. We're also recording the session, as I mentioned, so you're going to have the chance to go back and rewatch it in the member portal on rebgv.ca under past recordings. So now we're pleased to welcome Sandra Wyant and Kim Spencer for an online discussion of the rules of cooperation that were released yesterday. So first, let me introduce Sandra. Sandra's been a full-time realtor since 1991, 1 year longer than me, Sandra. She's passionate about her chosen career and believes it's a privilege to be invited into her clients' lives to help them reach their goals. She's also got a great deep history of leadership and volunteering at the board level. Sandra is our past chair of the board for the 2013-2014 term, is a member of the Professional Conduct Committee, and is a facilitator and instructor for REBGV and courses, including multiple offers and contingent listings, which she's also a contributor to writing those courses. She is also a recipient of both the Realtor Care Award and Professional Excellence Award. Wow, Sandra, I did not know you actually were a recipient for both of them. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you very much.
And next we have the board's ethics guy, the one and only Kim Spencer. I refer to him as the Yoda of real estate, although I don't want that to catch on. He is the Yoda of all managing brokers. Kim's been in the real estate business for a very long time. I like to say lovingly, they invented dirt when Kim got his license. That's probably not true, but not far off. Longer than he cares to think about. He's been a realtor, a managing broker, a company general manager, national sales manager, and has served on many board task forces and committees over the year. Now he's in the back room on most of those committees offering guidance and direction, which is wonderful to have him there. His side hustle, as always, has been teaching, which of course, some of you have taken his courses, have had the privilege and honor to be in the room with Kim and just hear the immense amount of knowledge he has and perspective he shares on the topics he teaches, which is his favorite thing to do. In his capacity as teaching, he's also writing courses. So he's a writer of many of the courses you take as well, too. And of course, naturally, we've all read the Ethics Guy columns that he puts out on the regular. So he is the man behind those articles. Please welcome Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hello there.
I turn it over to both of you now.
Well, thank you very much, Josh. And thank you, Sandra, for volunteering. I think actually, Sandra, you were voluntold, weren't you?
I was voluntold. Indeed, I was. Yes.
Oh, that's good. Well, what I thought I would do, there's 1,000, we have an account in Zoom that has 1,000 seats, and we reached that at some point in registration. I see there's 702 people on deck right now, with about 300 more to come. And that is why this is being recorded. So for those folks who didn't get to attend the live session, they can watch this as many times as they like. So I thought what we would do is I'll take you through a slide deck that I prepared in advance just to cover the main points. How do we get here? How do the rules get changed? That kind of thing. I'll do some demos of where to find the rules of cooperation. And then I think we're going to use the column that I wrote last week that was sent to everybody, I think on Thursday, or maybe it was Friday morning, as the place where we go through each one of the changes that are made to the rules of cooperation. Okay, so let's get cracking here, and away we go. By the way, it kind of occurred to me, yes, there's no way for you to directly speak to either Sandra or me, but with recording of this event, we're able to look at the Q&A after the fact. And if there's something that I don't think we made very clear in the session or that I haven't addressed in one of my columns, I'll use those ones to write about in the future. Okay, all right. So let's get cracking here. So that's today's menu. And I just, on the right-hand side of my slide, you'll see that I've drawn a red arrow to the rules of cooperation. It looks exactly the same as the rules of cooperation we had in the last edition, except you'll see there's revised October 17th. So can I please suggest that if you have saved the rules of cooperation on any of your devices anywhere, or you printed them out and you've got them in your desk drawer, if they don't say October 17th on them, please chuck them out. Okay, just, you know, use only the latest one. All right, so that's what we're here to do today. Let's get into it here. I don't know who's attending today's session. I suspect there will be lots of really experienced people and friends and so forth that we've known over the years. There'll also perhaps be some newer people as well. So for those who may not know, what are the rules of cooperation? I sometimes get that question there. So just to put you in the right spot, there are two standards that your real estate board, which is a professional association, has the ability to enforce against members. When you joined the real estate board, you agreed that you would abide by the board's professional standards and the Constitution and so forth. And so there's the Realtor Code of Ethics. We're not looking at that today. There's a course on it, by the way, but we're not looking at that. Today, we're looking at the rules of cooperation. So for those of you who've been in the business a long time, you may remember that the rules of cooperation used to be called the MLS rules and regulations. So that's what we're talking about here, the MLS rules and regulations. And as you can see in my second bullet, we have the same set of rules, the rules of cooperation between all three Metro Vancouver real estate boards. The thinking behind that was many years ago when we all started using Paragon in Metro Vancouver, it was just felt by the powers that be at the time that it would be logical to have a common set of MLS rules. Okay, so you'll find the same rules, Fraser Valley Board, same rules at Chilliwack District Board. Although I will say that even though they're the same rules, they can be interpreted slightly differently by different boards, professional conduct committees. And why is that? Well, because people are people, cultures are cultures, and sometimes people see things a little bit differently. But the rules and the words are exactly the same at all three real estate boards. And basically, to give another sort of name to this body of standards, they're the rules of engagement. They explain what kind of conduct you should expect from your colleagues and what kind of conduct they should expect to you. These rules of cooperation are focused in on the profession, as opposed to the Realtor Code of Ethics that is our public voice speaking to the public saying this is what we stand for. So that's the difference. Realtor Code speaks to the public, talks about who we are. It's very general, very aspirational. Rules of cooperation face in to the profession. It's not a public document, and it's quite prescriptive, meaning, you know, it'll say in some of the rules precisely what you're supposed to do in particular situations. Okay, so I have had questions over the last, and this always happens every time we change the rules. Sometimes members will say, well, who asked you to change the rules? How did we get here? No one talked to me. So I just thought I would cover the process for you so that you understand how we got here. It's the same process we've used for many, many years, longer than I've been at the real estate board, frankly, but there we go. Let's start with the first one. So the board, me, and my colleague in business practices, we maintain a list of suggestions that we get from members. And, you know, sometimes those will take the form of an email message to me or to other staffers at the board. It'll say, we got to change this rule. It's just not working for me. We should change this, or we should do a nip and a tuck here. So we keep a list of all of those suggestions for rules, as do the other real estate boards. And so Chilliwack has its list, Fraser Valley has its list suggested by its members, and we have our list. The other thing that we do throughout the year is we keep an eye on what's going out there. We basically an environmental scan. Have there been legal decisions that have been made that may require that the rules be changed? Is there a government edict that's come down that may require that the rules change? So, we do that as well. So we got member suggestions. We've got environmental scan going on so that our rules always mirror the latest requirements. And then every year and a bit, and the pandemic kind of messed things up. So the last time we changed the rules, for what it's worth, was March 2020, excuse me, 2 years ago. I don't think anyone noticed, Sandra. We were all heading home.
Yeah.
Hiding under our beds. Remember, that was the
I do. I don't think it was on the radar. People were more concerned about what was going on in the world.
They were. Do you remember we were being told, just go home for 2 weeks, it'll all be over? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, no one noticed. I suspect that was the last time the rules were actually changed. We usually do a nip and a tuck here. We aim to do that about every 18 months. But it's been a bit longer this time because of COVID. Okay, so when those lists have matured to the point where we think, hey, we got enough reason to have a meeting here, we get together with our colleagues at the Fraser Valley, Chilliwack boards, and Vancouver. Okay, so all three boards have a conversation about the rules and their lists of potential changes. So that's how that works. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, it's just staff buried in a back room coming up with stuff to annoy us.
Let me speak on that.
Good. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it's not just staff. There are realtors. Sometimes it is a managing broker that's in the group, but that's representatives in every group for each board. And Kim has already touched on this piece, is we might all have the same rules, but the practical way it was actually happening in each board is one of the reasons that we came together to readdress these rules of cooperation. Because even though our rules were the same, things were happening differently in other boards. So that's why when we got together, please remember, this is not a staff thing. This is the staff guiding the whole process, but they're getting feedback from realtors in the field, managing brokers, and then when all of those recommendations come together, it goes to the board of directors of each board, which has to ratify those changes. And I believe in this case, the first set that we gave them, they didn't ratify those changes, all the boards. So we had to do a redo. So this wasn't just one meeting. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not a group of staff in the back of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver changing the rules to make our life awkward. We're doing this to help you be more professional. I always consider the rules of cooperation as, how do I behave in the trenches? What do I do when I'm out working with other realtors? And what's the expectation that you have of me?
Excellent. Thanks, Sandra. And Sandra, you were actually you've been on more than one meeting roster for these changes over the years. And Josh, I think you, the 2020 round, you were involved in that, were you not?
I was, yes.
Lovely. And we had, there's managing brokers also in addition to realtors. And let's not forget that the board of directors of the real estate boards, except for the public directors, are all real estate agents or brokers. Okay, so it goes through numerous eyes. Anyway, so after the list has been discussed and horse traded and massaged, and we end up with a common set of, yeah, let's make these changes. Then what we do is we send these changes off to Dan Bennett. So who's Dan Bennett? Well, Dan Bennett is legal counsel for Vancouver, Fraser Valley. I don't know if he is for Chilliwack, but I suspect he probably is. He's a senior partner at Norton Rose. He also is the lawyer who is counsel for the Professional Conduct Committee of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, and also Fraser Valley Board. So he's very in tune. He's had all the hearings. He's on speed dial for meetings and so forth. So he reviews those potential list of changes, and sometimes he'll say, "Nah, you can't do that," or "Yeah, we can do that, but we need to, you know, change the wording slightly so that it passed legal tests." Okay, so it's not just stuff that came, you know, that was dreamed up and then put into a document and sent out to everyone. It does go through legal review. Then it goes to the board of directors. Okay, so that's the final review. And as Sandra pointed out, all three real estate boards of directors have to agree to the changes. If one board doesn't agree to the changes, then you know, we go back to the drawing board on whatever it is that they've not agreed to. Okay, so let's do that's the process. So I hope that explains it to you. I mean, sometimes it's suggested that, you know, these kinds of changes should be dealt with at an annual general meeting, with each change voted on by the members. That's not a system of governance that would allow for anything to get done. I want to be respectful of the suggestion. It sounds logical on the surface, but it's just not practical. There's 15,000 members. And that's not how governments work either, frankly. So this is the best process we've been able to come up with. And it's been used for many years. Okay, so if you want the big picture of the changes that have been made to your rules, if you just want to start, you know, focusing your mind on, so what are the big changes? Well, the big one is to Rule 4.02, which we will spend, I suspect, quite a lot of time on, and that is the direction regarding presentation of offers form, which is now called an irrevocable or irrevocable, whatever your taste is, the IDRIPO form. So that's the big one. And then there's a lesser one where some of the rules, more generally, if you have seller instructions to override a rule, and some of the rules have words that say, unless otherwise instructed by the seller in writing. Okay, there's 6 or 8 rules. I can never remember how many, but there's less than 10 rules that allow the seller to override the instruction. And in situations like that, quite often the changes that we've made are that if the seller otherwise instructs, that instruction in writing has to now be posted as an associated document. Why is that? Because there's some dispute between members occasionally as to whether or not a seller's agent actually has the instructions that they say that they have. And so we figure it's more open, more transparent, and just frankly easier for everyone if those written instructions are required to be posted. And so we'll, you know, I'll point that out when we get to the rules that say that. But that's a sort of a general thing. It's not 100% true at every time, but it's mostly true that if you've got a seller override instruction, got to be an associated document. Now, there's some minor nips and tucks where you have to reword, you reworded this rule, so, you know, 2 or 3 other rules were affected, so you've got to reword them. I call them housekeeping changes. Okay, we won't, look, we're not going to go through the housekeeping changes. They're described in my column. They're referenced all over the place, and we're just going to cover the big ticket items. Okay, so this is where I'm going to jump off and do a new screen share here. So let's
just while you get that organized, Kim, I just want to mention that those associated documents, a very typical, easy example for you to think of would be the posting of title, posting of PDS. So just so that you don't think, oh, it's something much more complicated. There's 2 examples where the rules say you post the title and now we post the PDS, and Kim will go into more detail, but you're going to need something from your seller when you don't post those documents. There you go, Kim.
Thanks, Sandra. So why don't we just, for starters, there's 1,000 of us in the room. Actually, there's not. There's 794, but there's 1,000 spots spoken for. You know, there's going to be people in our room today who, if I buttonholed them in the lobby of the real estate board and I said, here's a computer, show me where the rules of cooperation are. I suspect that there will be members who say, well, I know there are rules of cooperation. I have seen them. I think I pretty much understand them. But if I wanted to go check on Rule 4.02, where would I go? They haven't got the foggiest idea. So why don't we just cover that off first so that we'll do a little hands-on lesson here. So as you can see, we're at rebgv.ca. So you log in. It's pretty darn easy. hover your mouse over guidelines, rules, and legislation. Seems like a logical place to have our rules of engagement, don't you think? Okay, so we're just going to slide our mouse down to where it says ethics guide. There's other ways to get to where I'm going. This is how I go. So just click one time on ethics guide. All right, see that? All right, so let's just scroll up a bit. Over here on the right-hand side under the big three, see it says rules of cooperation. If I click on that, that Word document will open. Well, actually, it's a PDF, I think. It will open. You can download it and save it to your desktop. Everybody clear? And if you're left-hand brain, you could come over here and click on rules of cooperation as well. All right, so that's how you find the rules of cooperation. It's also where you can find the videos that I have done. See the last change? I did top tip videos on the rules of cooperation changes last time too. They're all posted here. Our staff people in our media department are busy putting the finishing touches on the 9 top tip videos that I shot 10 days ago. Okay, so they'll be posted here very soon. I'm thinking this week, so that'll be a good backup to what I've already written. So we try to cover off the different ways that people learn. Okay, so people sometimes learn best when they come to a session like this and they listen. Other people prefer to watch video in their own time. So that's why we've recorded the meeting and created these top tip videos. Other people prefer to read, and that's why I've written these columns. So I hope we've covered off pretty much every way that people learn and absorb information. All right, so now I'm going to do another screen share here. And let's just see if I can find it. There we are. Okay, I thought the thing that I would do here would be to just, oops, scroll back here. Let me just stop my screen share because I think I lost it for a second.
Can I just add, I'm starting to see a bunch of questions, Josh, there around the IDRPO. So if you could just grab those questions until we get to that.
I'll throw that out there right now for us while Kim, you're looking for your slides. So there's a question coming in from Elliot, and Elliot's wanting to know, can a seller still change the direction of offers if they put their thought in writing to you, the realtor, if they instruct you, the realtor? And I'm assuming, Elliot, you mean after they've already signed an IDRPO, can somewhere between there and offer presentation date, can they change their mind and redirect? And then, of course, look at an offer.
No, and the important word to remember here is irrevocable or irrevocable, whatever your fancy is. Okay, so that's a big change. And thanks for the question. We'll hit on that a bunch of times, okay, when we get to that rule. All right. So, okay, this is a column that I wrote. It came out on October 14th, whenever that was. It seems like an ice age ago. It's pretty busy. I thought I would just use this as quite frankly, as a reminder for me, because there's a lot of stuff and there's some stuff that I might have forgotten or it's left my head for some reason. Just put it down to being the age that I am. Okay, so there is the actual article I wrote, and that's not what I'm looking for. Where on earth did it go? Just hang on a second here. Let me see if I can find it for me. Maybe this is it. Got about 15 things open here.
Josh, I saw that question. There we go. There you
go.
Kim, can I just interrupt one real quick, just for a point of clarity? There was a question that came in, but the IRDPO is optional, right? Like I don't have to use it if I don't want to. Of course.
Okay, so let's just get that out of the way. Okay,
yes.
So I know that this is a big focus for members, and it's been a big focus for us too, frankly. You know, the changes that we've made to this rule are an attempt to address a major member and consumer pain point. It was done with love, not with anger. Okay, it's not good when an association is fining its members $15,000 to $20,000 for breaches of a rule. It's necessary sometimes, but it's not a great situation. We want to try and fix the situation. It gives the committee no pleasure. It gives me no pleasure to see a member who gets jammed up with this situation. So that's the overarching idea behind it. Okay, so yeah, now I'm assuming
Kim, just to add to that, Kim, like so,
Yeah.
and that's the bulk of the professional conduct complaints was the unfortunate misunderstanding around how to properly handle direction regarding presentation of offers, preemptive offers as they
Yeah.
came in. And so you said it perfectly. It was really done with love. It was really done to help members out in a way that, they weren't.
Yeah. And I hope you'll see it that way. Okay, so Josh, you can see ethics guy heads up, rules of cooperation change. That's everyone can see that. Okay, all right. So this is the live article. It's posted there on Realtor REBGV.org, which is some other site. I'm not really actually clear on what it is, but it's also there, as well as being at rebgv.ca. So you can get to it from more than one place. There's all kinds of live links in there. So you can see in this introduction, there's a link to the side-by-side comparison document. Oh, there it is there. That's the link. And this will take you to the most current set of the rules of cooperation that I've already shown you how to find. Okay. So let's just go the why. We've covered that already. This is just in writing, basically, to give us some context for why we change these rules and how they get changed. Quite a lot there. Then I describe the process, so you can read this as many times as you like. And then there's this neat little, all these are live links here that you can go to depending on your fancy, or you can just read what I've written that is coming. So there's the housekeeping changes all covered off for you. They go directly to the changes. Okay, so let's start off with Section 2 compliance, which actually isn't an area that I think members go to very often. When I write about rule changes and talk at meetings, I'll say, well, rule such and such, 1.36, whatever it might be, is a very specific rule. But there's actually an overarching statement in compliance within the rules of cooperation. It's pretty important to understand this. Okay, so you can see here, we've bolded and underlined the changes that have been made.
Hang on a second, Kim. What I have here is your one screen. It's your Word document, and so if you're in the side-by-side changes for the rules of cooperation, those I can't see just yet.
No, I'm not. Yeah, you should.
Okay.
See in green, Section 2 compliance. Do you see that in big? You're not seeing that.
I'm not. No, I see ethics guy heads up, rules of cooperation are changing October 7th, and then the yellow box that says read more.
That's what happens when you've got, how many have I got open? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 8 tabs open. How about that?
That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, gang.
Well. Yeah. Also, I'll just a quick little introduction. There's a lot of good questions coming in. When Kim comes to a natural conclusion with a slide, we'll go into all of the questions that are sitting there.
Okay, cool. All right. So look, that's what I was looking at before. It's in the article that published on the 14th of October, all of this stuff, all these live links. And this is what I'm using as my template to guide our discussions today, because I just thought it'd be easier than making up a new slide for stuff that's already exists. Okay, so Section 2 compliance is an overarching statement that gives context to members' responsibilities to each other under these rules. Okay, so let's just start at the very beginning, which is when you joined the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, you became a member, and as such, you agreed on your membership application form that you would meet your professional standards and all your obligations as a member of the Real Estate Board. And I've mentioned Realtor Code of Ethics. That's one set of standards. This is a second set of standards, and there's also some standards in the board's constitution, but they mostly relate to the business of the society, annual meetings, those kinds of things. So this is rules of cooperation still. And this is where we're saying, you're obliged to meet your professional standards. And that's specifically laid out here in the rules of cooperation. What is new is the bolded and underlined words. So whenever I get to one of these changes, it'll show you what the changes are. And this is something that's really important for members to understand, because sometimes a member will say, or use as a reason. And the first question we had was, what happens if my seller changes their mind about an early offer for the 4.02? And so sometimes members have, and so they change their mind, they present the offer early, they forget to notify somebody, and then one of the buyer's agents complains, or all of them do, and it ends up with a file. And, the listing agent, the seller's agent, goes to the committee and says, listen, this was my seller's lawful instruction. I have to follow those lawful instructions. You can't tell me what to do. Basically, that's the argument. Well, it hasn't flown at the committee because when you join the real estate board, you agreed to meet its professional standards, number one. And number two, think of these rules of cooperation as being like the terms of use of Facebook or YouTube or WeChat or your bank card. Use of the system is, by definition, you are agreeing to the terms of use. And the terms of use for our MLS system are these rules of cooperation. How's that? It's about as clear as I can make it. So
Kim, add Twitter to that, like that's another one. Look at how many people get blocked off Twitter for saying the wrong thing.
Exactly. So it didn't actually say that, although the committee always interpreted that kind of defense. Say, well, my seller told me to do that, so I have to follow my instructions. And the committee has not interpreted that way for quite some time. So we thought, just to make sure that it's absolutely clear, so that members are crystal clear, it says here, members shall not accept instructions from a client that contradict or override the requirements of the MLS system or the rules of cooperation, except as expressly set out in the rules. And as I said, there's 6 to 8 rules that say, unless otherwise instructed by the seller in writing. So for those rules, yeah, they can change the instruction, but for all the other rules, not, they're written in concrete. Okay, if the seller wants the MLS system, those are the rules. Okay, our system, our rules, our sandbox. You don't have to use the system. Frankly, you can do something else. But if you're using the system, there it is right there in a nutshell. So we just thought we should clean that up so that there's a place we can actually point to where it says that.
Can I just make a comment there, Kim? So
Yes.
What that really means for all of us as realtors out in the field is you got to make that really clear with your clients at the very beginning when you're taking the listing, so that none of you ever find yourself in position in front of a professional conduct subcommittee where you say, well, my clients, no, you're going to now take that piece of information and work it into your listing presentations or with your clients, that you want to be on the MLS system, these are the rules. So we have to become more aware so that we're saying the right things with our clients. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. And I was thinking of another profession and an example that may be helpful. Lawyers, our much loved cousins. So they have the Canadian Bar Association, which is their professional association. It's like the real estate board to them. And they have the Law Society, which is their regulator, like BCFSA. So a lawyer, the Bar Association has particular standards that it requires its members to meet if they want to conduct themselves as a member, as a lawyer in BC. This is the same kind of thinking. This is our professional association's standards that members are obliged to follow. Okay, so anyway, enough of that. Let's actually get into the nitty gritty. We're going to do a sort of a pregame, a workup to the big 4.02. We're doing them in numerical order here. Not going to spend a lot of time on this one. As you can see, hopefully you've been reading this while I've been talking here. This is one of those rules that allows the seller to otherwise instruct. You see that? Unless otherwise instructed by the seller in writing. If a buyer's brokerage, cooperating brokerage, requests, a copy of the property disclosure statement must be provided. All right. So if the seller doesn't want that, oh, excuse me, that's something else. Please forget I said that. last bit. I was going to say it's got to be posted as an associated document, but this isn't one of those rules. So I guess my take on it here, as you can see, is what the heck is the use of having property disclosure statement if a buyer agent can't see it? Yeah, this is a risk management tool invented by your Real Estate Errors and Omissions Insurance Corporation, because roughly 50% of the lawsuits and the complaints made to BCFSA contain at least one allegation of misrepresentation. And so that document is really an important way of dealing with the risk of making an unintended misrepresentation. And so you get your seller to answer these questions if they're able to, and then you have this document. Why on earth would a member say, no, you can't see it? Can't see it till you make an offer, or you can't see it. So we've changed that. We said, look, if a buyer agent wants to see it, same as they get to see the den in the living room in the basement, they get to see the property disclosure statement. Okay. Now you can save all those questions from your buyer agent colleagues if you just post the PDS as an associated document. Then that means you're making it available for them and you don't have to send it to them piecemeal. Okay, so that's what that rule, not a big change there. Just make sure you share the PDS. And if you want to make your life easy, put it as an associated document. All right, so that one was not, I don't think, too difficult. So this is rule 3.11. And by the way, in the rules of cooperation, the first number of the rule dictates the section from which it came, and section 3 deals with listings. Section 4 deals with offers. Section 5 deals with sales. Section 6 is professional conduct. Section 7 is commission. Section 8 is advertising. So that's how you know what kind of body of rules, subset of rules you're in those 50 pages of rules in the rules of cooperation. Okay, there are some changes made to this one. Let's just go to Kim's take here, because it's just a little summary for me. Strata Docs has now become a required document. I think this is a major irritant for members, and that's why we make these changes, is to try and make your life easier and less risky. I guess that's the best summary I can come up with. How many times have you contacted, when you've been a buyer's agent, how many times have you contacted a seller's agent to ask for the Strata Docs and they haven't even been ordered over the years? How many times that happened? You probably pulled your hair out on occasion over that. And it's interesting because the rule has always said at the time of taking the listing, you will get these documents, right? It's said that since, look, I started the board in 2006. It was in effect with those words before 2006. And we've kind of trundled along through the years with those words, and with, I suspect, a considerable number of members not ordering Strata Docs until they have an offer and then reviewing them with buyers, which maybe there's a rationale to be done during a slow market than a hot market. You can't dump a load of documents on people or make them make an offer without being able to see something vital like that, don't you think? So that's what this changes that is intended to deal with, is that Strata Docs are now a required document at the time of taking a listing. There's a policy that's been in effect for, I think, about 18 months. Isn't that right, Sandra? Where the board will not accept a Strata listing unless either the Strata documents have been uploaded as an associated document, or there's been a confirmation in writing that those Strata Docs have been ordered. Those are the only two ways a Strata listing now gets on the MLS system. Do you have anything to add to that, Sandra?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is just a real level of professionalism within our community of realtors, that so many people now are actively following through on that rule of cooperation. And it just makes it just so much better for the consumer on the other side, but makes it better for the listing realtor who has the actual information on the strata. Because before, you didn't know what the bylaws said or what they did discuss at the last AGM. Now you have all that documentation. So it actually ramps up the professionalism of all the parties involved. So it's a really great improvement within our rules of cooperation.
Okay. Josh, anything?
Yeah, I'm going to just touch on a few questions that are coming up. Let's clean these ones up right now. So there's a few questions around the PDS that are coming in. So can a seller who resides in a property refuse to fill out a PDS?
Well, of course they can, because the real estate board doesn't have any power over non-members. But given the relationship that you have with your client, we're fairly certain that you can ask them to sign the document, even if they don't wish to answer the questions. And that's maybe where the confusion is with members. If a seller wants to draw a line through the questions or answer some of them and not all of them, that's just fine. Date it, have them answer the questions that they can answer. If they can't answer other ones or don't wish to, fine, they just leave them blank, sign it, and that's your PDS form. If they absolutely refuse to sign the form, you can't make them. So you would make a note in your records that a PDS was and it has not been signed. But at least you have that document with that note attached to it.
And if a seller knows a little bit about the property but crosses it out, like you said, lawful right, but caveat emptor is alive and well in British Columbia. So if you see that as a buyer, you still have a responsibility to do your own diligence, whether the seller is going to assist through the PDS or not.
Right. Okay, so hopefully this is going to address that situation where you call the seller's agent, unless it's a brand new listing and they've ordered the docs, but they haven't come through yet. Those strata docs should be there. That's one more thing just popped into my head. The reason we tweaked a little bit, the first iteration of this rule was can't go on MLS unless the strata docs are there. We thought that imposed an unreasonable hardship on sellers' agents, the ones who actually order and pay for the documents. I mean, there's no requirement for you guys to pay for these documents, but if you do, that's fine. I'm sure your sellers appreciate that. But if you do a rush, if we forced members into ordering documents on a rush basis so that they could get their listings on MLS, we thought that was an unreasonable hardship on them. So what we said was, look, if you have them, post them, that's fine. But ordering them on a non-rush basis is also allowable, so that you're not jammed up with a massive document fee. That was the thinking there. All right. Now, Rule 312, as you can see, another unless otherwise instructed by the seller in writing form. You will probably know, if you've been reading the papers over the last few years, that there's now the Landowner Transparency Registry and Act. And that was put in place to identify parties who have a beneficial interest in the property, meaning they aren't on title, but they have, they're in the background. And that's something that the government felt very important to deal with potential money laundering and criminal activity. And just, I think I covered both of the reasons. There may be more that I've forgotten. In any event, we've added those documents, if applicable, to these requirements. So if you've got a landowner transparency registry document to establish who actually owns a place, this is covered in another rule as well, then it can be posted as an associated document. So that's what this is here, unless otherwise instructed by the seller in writing. And the seller could say, I don't want you to post that. I don't want you to post that. I don't want you to post the title search for whatever reason. My name's Brian Adams. If the property's in my name, I don't want you to post the title search. And if so, the seller can give you those written instructions. And if that's the case, this is one of those ones where you must now post those written instructions saying that the title search is not to be posted. Everybody understand that? That was kind of a muddled explanation. I'm sorry about that, but did I make it clear, Sandra and Josh?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, a very simple thing like this is, you might have a seller who doesn't want you to post the title because it's a marital breakup, but they will provide the title, right? But they might have all this idea in their head that, well, we're never giving that over. Well, you probably will be giving it over, but this is the way to do it initially. You put it in writing, post that the title is not going to be posted. That's the kind of reasoning that comes behind from sellers in that situation. And we can't cover off all the different scenarios, but just, that could be something that you might just need instructions from them in writing and post those instructions just up in the documents.
Within 24 hours.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
that's something that you would be talking about when you're taking the listing. Okay, you don't want that done. Okay, well, you're gonna have to complete this little form here that says you don't want that posted. And now when I submit my listing, I'll submit that up to Associated Docs.
Yeah, and that would be a member generated form, as you put it.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have,
absolutely.
yeah. There you go. Okay, hope that answers that. And this is where I got a little sidetracked because there's another rule that mentions in more detail landowner transparency legislation. So just remember what I've said for this rule and when we start talking about the other rule that mentions that. Okay, so changes to the listing information, really, really important. We have added to this. What have we added to this?
It's
Oh,
the piece about the Associated Docs.
yeah,
They're not to strip it out. They're not to strip out the Associated Docs.
right, right. Oh God, welcome to my world, gang. You the way that when you work with rules like this, especially when they've been changed, you think, which rule was it that said that? So sometimes I'll get a little mixed up. Anyway, doesn't affect us here. So 3.16, in our associated documents, what we've got is and photos and all the other information. You can't delete that. Okay, we've covered this a number of times and members have actually been punished for deleting information from the system. It actually was a thing that started happening, what, 5-6 years ago, where someone somewhere said, well, I've used the system. Let's purge all that information so that the seller's information isn't still out there forever and a day. That's completely wrong. Remember that the MLS system is a cooperative information system that members contribute to and take from. And so if you use the system to get a property sold, if your seller benefits from using the information in the system to get a CMA to set the price and all the rest of it, then it's not reasonable for that seller and the seller's agent to say, well, we got our use of the system. Now we're going to take the data out so that no one else can benefit from it, right? So the reputation of our MLS system is critical to the success of our business and of each one of you individually. If there were no rule that forbid members from deleting information from the system, we'd have a system with no information in it once a place has been sold. It just wouldn't work at all. Okay, so we're also including associated documents as being information that you cannot delete yourself. All right, so that's the only change here. So just don't take that information out before subject removal and then hope no one's going to notice, because they will notice and they'll report it to us and then you'll get jammed up. I just don't want to see that. I don't want to see you get a fine. Leave that stuff in there. Don't touch it. Now, just so that you know, the associated documents tab is purged after 90 days after the sale. All right, so it's got to be in there for at least 90 days until it's purged by the board, not by you. Okay, all right. I'm just going to scroll right ahead to Kim's take on this one. This is member access to listed properties. Think about this. How many times have you called a seller's agent and you may hear, you just go, can I show the place? And the seller's agent says, yeah, no, you have to write an offer first, or something like that, or no, you can't see it. You just have to write an offer on it or some variation of that. That's what this is all about. And it talks about new listings and existing listings and so forth. And then if there's a no-show period, what you must do if an offer comes in. So it's actually quite a long rule. I'm just going to say that if you have a piece of paper, write down 3.22. So you come back to this rule later while you're in the neighborhood, write down 4.02, because to my mind, these are quite long rules, quite complicated. You want to make sure you understand them. And they both deal with major pain points for members, which is getting access to a listing so they can show it to their buyers, or presenting offers when they have them. Okay, so that's what this is. So I'm just going to go ahead to my Kim's take. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can read what I wrote and remind myself what I'm about to tell you. Okay, so firstly, there's a requirement that any instruction that you've received has to be followed. Okay, following client instructions on delayed showings. And once the listing's been entered into the system, you must use the MLS listing amendment form to add instructions to delay showings. That's probably the biggest paperwork change for this rule. Wouldn't you agree, Sandra?
Yeah, I would. And, also it's a bit of a refresher for everybody too about the, some people, some of our members still think it's 7 days for access. And we changed that on the last rules of cooperation to 5 days.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a reminder, because it's been a while since you've looked at those rules. 5 days the access, and it's 5 calendar days.
Or sooner.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I can get you in this afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be good. Okay, so just remember, if you're going to delay a showing, that instruction has to be done on an MLS contract change form. And then the specific date when the property can be shown must be shown in realtor marks, as you can see in the middle of my Kim's Take thing. And now what about if you have a delayed offer presentation and you're trying to get in, there's delayed offers, and then you have to notify buyer's agents? No, because no early offers are getting presented. Okay, so the old rule used to say, if there's a delayed showing and an early offer comes in, or an offer comes in at all, the seller's agent has to phone the buyer's agents who haven't yet seen the place, who've asked for a showing, to let them know, oh, there's an offer that's come in. Do you want to talk to your buyer and make an offer? That was the old standard. Doesn't really make any sense when there's no early offers to be presented with an IDRIPO form, which we will get to when we get to 4.02. Why no early offers are being presented? So it doesn't trigger a requirement any longer to say, oh, well, there's an early offer coming in, so would you like to make your offer? Because that isn't going to happen anymore. How's that, Sandra and Josh?
Yeah.
Sense?
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
It's a preview of coming attractions, and it'll certainly answer quite a number of the questions that are sitting in our Q&A right now. So yes, that's great.
Okay, cool. All right, title searches. Oh yeah, okay. This is the one that I was talking about a little earlier, the Landowner Transparency Registry. So you can see here that in bolded and underlined, or other search necessary to confirm ownership. So that's what the reference are here. And also similar to that other rule, if the seller has given you instructions not to post those documents, the instruction must be posted as an associated document. Okay, so it looks like a lot, but it's not really. So just think of it this way. If you have some search document, which frankly I've never seen, perhaps Sandra or Josh, you've seen them, a landowner transparency search result. I mean, I don't even know what that would look like. Have you ever looked at it?
Yeah, I've looked at them. It's a very simple, plain document. It either says yes or no. There's not an awful lot of information on them. Ours normally say no.
Okay. So, but if it did have a beneficial owner, it would say yes, and I presume it would then identify that individual.
We just haven't seen one yet.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's great. All right. So auction listings, pretty small change here. We do have some members who have a business model that deals with auctions, and quite frankly, one of them called me and said, "Why do we have to have the reserve price as the listing price? That's not how auctions work." And I don't know why we put that rule in there. It was many, many years ago, probably 20, 25 years ago, maybe even. And we had a look at that and went, yeah, I don't know what. If you can't remember why you made the rule, then maybe you don't need the rule, right? So we've just removed that requirement. So in the future, if someone does have an auction listing, you might see a listing price of $1, just the way you would on eBay or something. And that doesn't mean that that's what the price is, because remember, it's an invitation to treat and all that stuff. Okay, roll up your sleeves. Here it comes.
Can I just say something before you get into the nitty gritty here? One of the reasons I think that many people in this class or in this webinar today are here is because while you went through the experience of a marketplace where we had a DRPO that allowed bully offers, and unfortunately, some other member um, didn't follow the rules, as it were, through our rules of cooperation. You then underwent yourself reputational damage with your clients, and the industry as a whole did, from that whole offers coming in, people not knowing about offers, all that situation. That's part of why we're doing this. The damage that we took as realtors as a whole, whether you as an individual ever did it or not, or ever made a mistake around the rules, everyone felt the pain. Every consumer that lost an opportunity to present an offer because there was a preemptive offer taken and they didn't know about it, that's all they talked about with their friends and their family and their social media. That was huge reputational damage. And having rules that were in place to try and stop it didn't have any impact. All it did was the fines were getting higher and higher and higher, which is why we've now completely changed the way we're looking at it. So, just to give you kind of some background, it's the reputational damage that we all went through because it wasn't done the way we said to do it through the rules of cooperation. So here we are with a new rule of cooperation that we're hoping is going to help with that reputational damage that you all went through.
And Sandra, I want to add to that. Perfect. If we didn't make this change, it's quite likely government would have. Like this is coming at us one way or another. So this is a beautiful example of our board standing up, us as members in an industry saying, let's make this change before it comes our way. And let's be in control of the narrative around the way the change is going to look for us as it actually applies in our daily practice.
Okay, so let's start off with this one, gang. Just write 4.02 down on that piece of paper and circle it so you can come back to this as many times as you like. And always rely on what I've written rather than my babbling in a seminar. I'm trying to give you as much color as I can, but I've been known to make mistakes sometimes when I speak, like anybody else. So I'll always go to the written word. That would be my recommendation. I don't think I've said anything wrong. Because I think board staff would have jumped in and told Josh if I had, but always go to the written. Okay, so now this is something that I just want to make absolutely clear to members. You do not have to delay offers, okay? And if your seller doesn't want to delay offers, or if that's not a strategy that you're going to follow, then you just take offers as they come in, the way that we've been doing for 50 years at the real estate board. It really wasn't until, when do you think, 2008, 2009, that someone came up with this idea of delaying offers until a particular day. It was sort of an organic evolution. And
it definitely took place somewhere in the run up between 2002 right up into 2008 when the market started to turn.
Yeah.
And it really showed itself in 2016 and then amplified over the last 2 years.
Exactly. So, when I got my license, and many of you in the room today, there wasn't this notion of let's delay offers till next Tuesday. It didn't exist. And the reason I think that it was conceived, and I don't know who conceived it, it was actually a pretty good idea at the time, and for certain situations is still a good idea, is that the hot market caused all kinds of mayhem for sellers agents. They were getting 50 to 100 calls on a listing. They were trying to manage showings, manage offers. And so what the thinking behind it was, you know what? Why don't we delay showings until Saturday and Sunday and then have an offer presentation for anyone who's interested on Tuesday, so that when those 100 buyers agents called, you'd be able to say, okay, come in anytime you want on the weekend, bring an inspector if you want. You talk to your clients on Sunday night and all day Monday. And, if you like the place, all the offers can be presented on Tuesday. It was an attempt to be fair to everyone and get everyone a kick at the cat. That's basically, I think, the thinking that was behind this organic evolution of this practice. And at first it wasn't regulated at all. But, at some point, as it was evolving, people would say, well, I don't have to see the place and I want to write an offer right now. So I want my offer presented. And so you ended up with situations where sellers agents were saying, well, okay, so, I'm an agent, that's information my seller's entitled to hear. So they'd phone the seller and they'd say, look, offers presented on Tuesday. That's what I've told everybody, but it's Thursday today, 4 days early. We got an offer. Shall I call them back and tell them to wait till Tuesday? And sometimes seller would say, hell no, bring it over. I mean, if I like the offer, then we don't have to have open houses, and won't that be lovely? And so I think that's basically how these problems started, because there was no protocol to follow for how to handle that situation. And so as Sandra and Josh pointed out, buyers and buyers agents were not being notified that an offer was coming in. They hadn't even written one, so it wasn't a multiple offer presentation. They just weren't notified. And then they'd see the sold sticker go up and they'd go, what the hell? I thought it was Tuesday and I never got a chance to get in there. So we started making rules to try and regulate that. And despite our best efforts, we made the first rule, thought, well, good, that's fixed it. Then other things happened. Well, so we did another tweak and that's fixed it. For example, if Sandra tells me in writing that she wants to be kept informed under the rule that we had last week, I would have had to have told her if an early offer came in and give her a chance to write the offer and present it along with the early offer. Prior to that, we didn't even have that rule. And so, it was a bit of a mishmash. It's been an evolutionary process. Frankly, it was about 5 years ago that we actually discussed making that seller instruction irrevocable. We actually discussed that in some meetings and decided that might be a bridge too far, that maybe we shouldn't go there. And then we heard that the Winnipeg board had been doing it. And so we took another look at it in the last year. And I also think that the evolution of this process has actually taught buyers, aggressive buyers, and I don't say that in a pejorative way, just people who really want a place. It's taught them, oh, I'm going to write an early offer and try and get my foot in the door first. And maybe someone won't notify other people and I'll actually get the place. And sometimes that worked. So it seemed to us that our system was actually creating these problems where some buyers were gaming the system to get in early in the hopes that others wouldn't be notified. And the collateral fallout, as Sandra was saying, was unhappy buyers agents, and definitely where complaints were made, really unhappy sellers agents if it was felt by the committee they hadn't followed the rule. So what we thought was this. Here's the thinking. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you don't have to delay offers. We can just take them as they come in. And if there's more than one to present, well, present them all together per rule 4.04. That's what we're going to do. But the seller might say, well, I want to see them on Tuesday. Let's have an open and collect them all and see them all on Tuesday. Okay, we can do that. That's certainly an option. I need your written instructions to do that. And I want to make it clear to you that that instruction is now irrevocable. That means if you want to press that button, you can't unpress it. In other words, it means that offers will not be presented until next Tuesday, no matter what. Even if the offer that comes in is more than what your listing price is, even if it's made with a short fuse so that it expires on Friday, I cannot present those offers to you, nor can I reveal anything that's in those offers to you. If you ask me, I can tell you if there are offers, but I can't tell you anything about them. Are you sure you want that? Because it's irrevocable. I can't reveal that offer information to you before next Tuesday. Is that what you want to do? Yeah, that's what we want to do. Are you sure? Yeah, okay, so because it says irrevocable. You sure? Okay, fine. Sign here. That's the thinking. So then when maybe an early buyer comes in and says, well, I want to put a short fuse on a very good offer. It's Saturday morning. Well, you can't tell a buyer's agent not to write an offer. So the way it's going to work now is when they phone the seller's agent to say, oh, I got an offer. The seller's agent says, well, that's nice. You're going to get to present it on Tuesday because we have irrevocable instructions that nothing's happening until Tuesday. And we're really hoping that this optional program will fix what has been an ongoing pain point for consumers and members over the years. Any thoughts to add, Sandra? Josh?
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Sandra.
Yeah, you know, the pieces where it all went really wobbly, I'm sure that's not proper professional word to use, but it went all really wobbly because when you were sitting with your seller before with your DRPO, they were telling you, oh, right on there, I reserve the right to take any offers that come in before that date, or change this or change that. So all of those things are being cleaned up so that you're going to have a much bigger conversation, because when they say they want to do a delayed offer presentation, first of all, you're going to talk about the risks and benefits of doing that first. And then you're going to tell them, once they've made the decision that it's irrevocable, oh, by the way, you see this fine print? And you're going to really have to remind them you're not going to be sharing anything. Now, there's a lot of people, once you really go into the details of this and explain it properly, that are just going to say, yeah, I'm not doing that. I want to be open to whatever. So great. Okay, then we're not doing the irrevocable. But it is important to note that, remember, if the buyer's agent isn't present, we've still got that little box on here to check. But if you have to have these bigger conversations now, instead of the form that we had prior, maybe it was just too light on content. And so as a realtor, you maybe didn't know what to say to the seller to explain to them the seriousness of, okay, I'm telling you I can't give you information, but you still want it. Do you like, it's a much bigger conversation. It's deeper, it's bigger. You have to practice that conversation before you sit down in front of them. Josh.
Well, so sure, great. That's awesome. I appreciate that. I think I'm going to sign it because I like the idea. I want to corral as many offers into the future so it benefits me. But what if an offer comes in preemptively somewhere shortly after list date, and it's so good that an agent says, well, I think we should probably cancel and relist so we can get rid of those irrevocable directions to try and deal with this really good offer that's in front of you right now? What happens when an agent, or what happens if in a scenario like that? Let me ask it that way.
You cannot do that. That's one of the pieces of changes that Kim is going to cover. The MLS department will refuse a cancellation that has been received with an irrevocable DRPO. There will be no cancellations given. But
Wonderful.
Kim can give you the finer details.
And let me add an element to that, just a twist for you, Sandra and Kim. What if the cancellation is and then attempted to be relisted with an agent in a different brokerage?
Okay, Kim, that's yours.
It's like whack-a-mole. Okay.
Is that whack-a-mole? Sorry.
Well, no, because we won't cancel it.
Yeah, it's just what Sandra just said simply applies. Like, you're not going to be able to relist it with a different brokerage if you had an IDRPO already signed with a brokerage prior.
We're not going to let you cancel the listing in that time period.
Yeah. Is an IRDPO still valid though if I don't post it on associated documents, even though it's been signed?
Well, it would be valid, but it's a breach of the rule. So let's just cover it from the top. I'm going to actually go through the rule. I thought we would look at the form first, which is what I've got up on the screen. But
go for it.
Basically, look, you get the form signed. It is a required document for the listing. It is required that it be posted as an associated document, and there is a required notification in realtor remarks that it is an IDRPO delayed offer situation. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. So buyer's agent shouldn't be under any illusion at all when they see a listing. This document we're looking at right now is an associated document, and it's the brokerage's responsibility to make sure that it ends up in that tab if it's broker loaded, and there must be a remark in remarks that it's a delayed offer. So let's take it from the top. This is what the seller is agreeing to, and I want to emphasize again, no one is forcing your seller to agree to this. It's an option, okay? It's probably going to get used a lot when the market hots up again. Probably won't be used all that much right now, which actually, to my mind, is quite good because we can get used to this new protocol and system and, be comfortable with it for the next, round of craziness that will come our way at some point, I'm sure. Okay, so number one, The sellers acknowledge it, confirm and acknowledge, okay? And down below is a place for them to sign. That we are not going to review offers until next Tuesday, October, whatever the date is. And the designated agent, that would be me, I'm instructed by you, the seller, not to provide you with any specifics or terms of any offer I get in advance of next Tuesday, even though that offer might exceed the listing price of the property, or that it may expire before next Tuesday. Pretty clear, okay? So make sure your clients understand that. We do not want to be hearing at all, ever, from someone, I didn't know what I was signing, which quite frankly is a very lousy legal argument. It doesn't usually fly in court, just so you know, because judges go, is that your signature there? Okay, so you signed something that you didn't read, which probably most of us do at some point in our lives, but not a very strong argument. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 says that all the stuff I just said to you about not presenting offers to you, telling you about what's in them before next Tuesday, that instruction to me is irrevocable. It cannot be changed. It's written in concrete. I cannot present those offers to you. You're agreeing to that in advance. Of course, after this time period expires, we can decide what we're doing at that point, come up with a new delayed time, or just forget the whole thing and wait for offers to come in. All right. Now, number 3, that is where we also tell the seller that their instruction is going to be posted to the system. We don't say associated document, but it's going to be posted there. And number 4 is probably lawyer stuff. Everything else in the contract is unaffected by this irrevocable direction, is basically what that's saying. And number 5, there's some realtor risk management there from the board to you. The seller, when they sign this, is saying, yes, my agents explained all of this and I understand it. Okay, that's an attempt to address, it's never 100%, but it's an attempt to address someone who might say, well, I didn't really understand what I was signing. So do please make sure that you explain this in great detail, excruciating detail, and get them to sign this thing. Okay, there you go. That's the form. Oh, well, those are the instructions to go with the form. So what I want to do is go back to my little cheat sheet that I was using before with my article. Here it is. And let's take it from the top. All right. How am I doing, Sandra and Josh? Anything burning that?
Well, we've got a lot of questions that could fill up the balance of the time that we have here today. So if you have some big points to make, this is the time.
Okay, well, let's just quickly go through this then, because there's a few others that are this is the biggie. When we get this one done, then we've got probably another 5 minutes or so covering the other small ones. Then we'll open it up to questions. We've got 45 minutes to go. So, all right. Now, 4.02a, we've just added the word irrevocable. Okay. And this is unless otherwise instructed by the seller in a completed form. This is one of those 7 or 8 rules that has that allowance for a seller to otherwise instruct. So there's the default right there. You don't have to do an irrevocable delayed offer. You can just take offers as they come in. And I think some members are not clear on that point. And some of them, I think that if they don't choose the irrevocable delay when they list it, that they can never choose that option. Of course you can. You can pull the trigger at any time and make a delayed offer, irrevocable delayed offer situation, even after you've listed it. It's an option, folks. But if you press that button, if you tick that box, it's irrevocable. Okay, so just understand what you're doing and make sure your client understands what they're agreeing to. All right, so 2 just is the same old thing. Offers are always presented through the seller's agent unless otherwise arranged. And B, this irrevocable, I call it an IDRIPO form. So it just seems easier to say. Must be posted as an associated document. I think I've beaten that to death within 24 hours of the place being listed. All right, so that's where that requirement is. And also it says, that's where it says that you also have to put a note in realtor remarks. So associated documents, folks, realtor remarks, folks, and it's irrevocable. Nothing happens before next Tuesday. But I do want to say that we did have some discussion after the fact, and the rule's been changed. Someone wrote in and said, well, can I tell the seller that an early offer has come in that is asked, or if they ask, or can I phone them and say I've got an early offer? And we went back to Dan Bennett on that point, because my initial reaction was, no, you can't tell them about an offer either. But that's just me. I was wrong. Okay, so if your seller says, well, have you had any early offers? Josh will be able to say, well, yes, I have. But that's as much as he can say, because they've irrevocably agreed to him not telling them what's in those offers. So my suggestion would be that you do a little bit of scripting on this to ask what your seller's wishes are. Do you want to know, or do you not want to know? Bearing in mind that I can't tell you anything if I do tell you there's early offers sitting in the inbox.
In the conversation, Kim, I just want to add, because some people say, well, what if it's $500,000 above and my seller finds out afterwards, and on offer presentation night, I don't get anything close to that? Can they turn around? Am I exposed for a lawsuit? The question is, or the point is, you should be telling your clients it could be 500,000 above your list price, and we may not get that kind of a number on offer presentation. Like, that's a scenario you should be going through when they're considering signing this IDRPO or IDRPO.
That's
Well,
right.
I think that's the piece that we just want to make really clear. This is not a 1-second conversation kind of form. This is a form that you really have to explain to the client the risks involved in signing this form. You know, they will think of the benefits, but they may not understand what the risks are. So it is up to us to be able to explain that properly, and lean in on your managing broker for the wording around that, so that you say the right thing with your clients, so that you don't leave yourself in this position where you didn't go over any of that with them. I mean, I know that you just really need to examine what you're saying to the client. This is not one of those forms that you would be sliding in front of them and getting their signature on. It's probably going to take as much time to explain if they're considering it as some of our other documentation. So be prepared for that. We recognize that a lot of you might not use this form at this time in the market, but better to be prepared to know how to use it properly, rather than find yourself in a situation where you haven't done what you needed to do to explain it to the client.
And I just wanted to point out that, again, this is one of the reasons that we always have a lawyer review all the stuff that we come up with. Okay, so that, you know, the documentation has been reviewed by the board's lawyer, but also, you know, the process from a legal perspective, and the risks and all the rest of it. And, you know, it does hinge, as Sandra and Josh have pointed out, it does hinge on your explanation to the seller and getting their informed consent. Okay, it all hinges on that. So be careful about how you explain this thing.
Good question, Kim. Just if, and maybe either Sandra or yourself, but do you say the market right now is calm? And this is a great time for the form to come out. I do agree. We're not being slammed into it where mistakes potentially get made. But when the market starts to pick back up again, let's say we take a listing, an agent takes a listing, it's not hot, they don't sign the IDRPO, but you can tell there's a lot of interest in it, and you decide that this might be a good strategy. Can you sign it after a listing contract has already gone live?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's an option that you can pull the trigger on anytime.
Got it. Okay. And then here's a question. This might be a bit of a technical one, but so it's clear that in a period where an IDRPO has been signed, there's no bully or preemptive offer that can come in. And at this point, I suspect there's no penalty to an agent that decides still to follow instructions from a buyer and write an offer to a listing agent during that time. So
we can't, a seller and seller's agent and the board can't tell a buyer not to write an offer. If they choose to write an offer, that's their right. And if they're instructing their buyer agent as agent, you'd have to draft the offer. Frankly, if I were the buyer's agent, I'd probably be saying something like, there's no point it's not going to get presented. But if you insist, yes, I will write the offer. I'll notify the seller's agent.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. Question coming in from Doug Williams. Where did it go? Oh, it disappeared. Will instructions to have all offers emailed to the listing realtor not presented in person be on a different form other than an iDRIPO?
It's on this form. It's actually one of the boxes on this form on the other page.
Okay.
So Kim showed the second part of the form. There's actually 3 pages to the form, I think.
Yeah, there's more than one page, and the first page identifies the property and the specifics of the dates, whether or not buyers agents can be present at presentations. But Doug, to your question, you're actually talking about Rule 4.01 that hasn't been changed. I think it's a bit of a misnomer that sellers agents have, or a misunderstanding that maybe a lot of agents have, is that they can actually specify to buyers agents how they will deliver their offer. You can't impose on a buyer agent, you must email me the offers. You must bring the offer over by horse and buggy. Buyer's agent's entitled to bring that offer over and deliver it to you personally if they choose. Now, look, most people use email because it's just so darn convenient. That's fine. But you can't make people respond to you in a particular way. If they have an offer, they will get it to you in a manner of their choosing, and you then present it. If there's no delays, and if there is a delay, you present it on the delayed time. Buyer's agents sometimes don't want to send their offer in advance because they don't want you, the seller's agent, to be aware of what their buyer's offered. That's why they often wait till what, 30 seconds before 5 p.m. on Tuesday to press send. So it's 4.01, and there have been no changes made to that rule.
Perfect, Kim. Just to circle back. So essentially, when we're going to use the iDRPO, if we're going to delay offer presentations, that's one aspect of it. Where if we want the agent not to be present during an offer presentation, that's the other aspect. You could use it for both, or one or the other.
Right.
Yeah. And the nice thing is those little boxes are much bigger now. Thank goodness. Those initial boxes are much bigger.
You don't need your specs? Okay.
I don't need 2 sets of specs to see the box.
Okay, you see on your screen there, gang, C, that's where it says that you will not accept a cancellation of that listing before next Tuesday, if that's the date that we've been using. And then 4 talks about what we've already seen on the actual form, which is you're not going to reveal anything about that offer. And E, this is, I don't know if this is new or not. Maybe, staff can advise that, but I think it is new. There's always been a requirement that you must inform buyer's agents what the seller's decision was. Imagine that. You actually tell a colleague what the hell happened to their offer. I mean, I just don't understand why someone wouldn't. But I do hear occasionally that buyer's agents send offers in and like it goes into a black void and they never hear. So there's always been a business etiquette reason for being professional and polite to your colleague by notifying them what's happened. And in the rules up to this point, it's been if the buyer agent demands it, then the seller's decision must be communicated in writing. And that has been the case for quite a while. Now let's look at what E says, because I think there's been some tweaks here. So unless your seller otherwise instructs, you will, without delay, make the seller's decision known in writing to the cooperating brokerage that submitted the offer. And if the seller instructs that I don't want you to tell them about my decision, which is kind of weird. I don't know why a seller, why would you do that? But I guess people have reasons. Don't talk to them or tell them anything. Then a copy of that seller's written instruction shall be provided to the cooperating brokerage on request. Okay, so I guess the conversation would go like this. Hey, what happened to my offer? I can't tell you. What do you mean? I can't tell you. I've got instructions not to tell you. Well, I want to see those instructions. Well, fine, I'll send them to you. Okay, which could take the form, I suppose, of a text or an email. I'm putting in writing, my seller has told me not to tell you what their decision is with the offer. Obviously, they're telling them because if they'd accepted it, they'd know. But anyway, there's probably more to this than I can remember. God, you guys have no idea. These meetings go on forever. It's like nails on a blackboard. So there you are. Welcome to my world.
So one of the things that I think if we look at it in a really positive way regarding the idea or PO, I think there's a really positive way to look at it if you are delaying, is it is an opportunity to provide everyone with an equal playing field. It's an opportunity, if you have a strata for sale, to give everyone strata docs, everyone everything they need, so that everyone has the same opportunity to do their very best on presentation day. So if you think about it that way, that's actually quite a positive thing rather than the other way around. So all of you will interpret how to use this form differently. The biggest piece for all of us is, as long as you have the conversations you need to have with your seller, that is going to be really, really important. And if you're unsure of those conversations, talk to your managing broker.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so F there has not changed, but I did want to highlight it for you. Since 2020, we've had a requirement that you must keep all offers that have been presented to the seller on record for a year. And there is no requirement that BCFSA is imposed. I think it's going to. I mean, you've got BCFSA requirements to keep all your documentation for 7 years, like income tax. But unaccepted offers, for example, BCFSA doesn't require that you keep those, which is why it was, remember, it was tough to get that information when they asked for it last year. Yeah, or earlier this year. So just keep any offer that's presented on your property for a year. So that rule was put in when it was instituted to address and for auditing purposes, any complaint made about phantom offers, where a buyer agent would say, well, I phoned the seller's agent. They said they had 6 offers, but I don't believe them. And how would I know? Well, if you really feel that way, you can make a complaint. We can compel those offers. We can't tell you what was in them, but we can certainly confirm those offers. And this just helps that process, because you've got to keep them on file for a year. And that's unaccepted offers as well as the accepted offer. Okay. I think we'd better move on here. It's 11:30. I'm just going to do the rest of them here. Okay, so strata properties, we've already explained that. That's that harmonizing stuff that I was talking about earlier. And then what's this with the cancellation of listings?
That's the one that just blends in, because if they have an ID or PO, they can't cancel in that
Right.
time period.
Gotcha. 403, yeah, this is just harmonizing with 4.04. Or 402 rather. Multiple offers. I think there's just some changes here. Yeah, because all these rules mesh together. So because we've come up with a new form and a new name, 4.04 has got some reference there to the new IDRIPO form. 6.08. If you remember this rule until Friday or until Sunday on the 16th of October, that rule actually referred to himself. And we just felt that time is long gone. So we've used the wording that we think is most appropriate for that, to identify all people. I don't think anyone is even going to notice this one. Buried in section 9, which is virtual office websites, there used to be a requirement that you had to have the phone number of the registrant. Virtual office registrant's phone number had to be kept on record. God knows why. And again, if you can't think of a reason why the rule should be there, then maybe you don't need it. So we removed that requirement. One last thing, we had hoped, and I wrote about this earlier this year, we had hoped to have had a post multiple offer disclosure form available for you, and we actually approved it. Your directors approved it, and the Fraser Valley Board directors did not approve it. Neither did Chilliwack District. Went back and forth, and it actually held up this whole process for an extra 5 months. Because remember, in January I said, well, we're getting this form, it'll be in effect in June. No. So we pulled it out of this whole basket of changes, and we're looking at that separately. But the thinking behind this form is in a multiple offer presentation, where there maybe isn't trust that the seller's agent, I mean, it's really sad, where the seller's agent maybe hasn't been accurate about the number of offers. So at the moment, within 24 hours of the seller actually signing an offer and agreeing to it, they also sign a form that lists the number of offers that were presented and which brokerages presented them for the buyer. And then that is delivered to all the buyer's agents who had offers presented. So they can go back to their buyer and say, well, there were 5 offers presented, and these are the different brokerages involved, and there's the seller's signature on the form. Okay, so we felt that would have a chilling effect on anyone who perhaps is a little over enthusiastic in explaining how many offers they actually have in their hand. So it's sort of a check on that potential, and also a comfort to buyers that, yeah, I was in competition with a bunch of people. We don't have that form for you. It's coming.
Yeah, I want to jump in if I can. We've got a lot of questions and a lot of interest, and I think maybe I'll do my best to try and ask a few of them so we can see ourselves right towards the end here. So there's one coming in. Are sellers obligated to allow buyers agents to make their offers in person if requested, and assuming that particular box is not checked? So assuming it's wide open and a buyer's agent says, hey, prove to me that you don't want me, you're restricting my ability to present my offer, and it doesn't, there's nothing there. Can they force that?
Yeah, you know what, gang? That's the default. You have to specifically opt out of buyer's agents being able to be there if you don't want them there. Okay, look, some of you who've been around for a long time will remember buyer's agents always presented their offers at the kitchen table in the house. Mr. Mrs. Seller, these are nice people. My buyers are nice people. And that kind of went away. Yeah. The default is that buyer's agents have a right to be present when their offer is presented. If you don't want that, if your seller doesn't want that, then they have to otherwise instruct in writing using the iDRIPO form. And before that, it was the DRIPO form. It's been that way for years. The default is buyer agent gets to be there. I don't think a lot of buyer's agents understand that.
And that's right in our rules of cooperation. That hasn't changed.
No, it's the same.
Here's another question for you. I'll speed us along. How do we explain the difference between, and this is just it's a good question, general question though. How do we explain the difference between fiduciary duty versus rules of cooperation when they are in conflict? Sorry, my camera keeps going up. When they're in conflict to one another. It's like obligation to follow lawful instructions versus the rules. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. And I'll go back to the vehicle I've been using to describe this. It seems to work for many people is, listen, these are our terms of service. It's not something that, that's unique on planet Earth. You use a credit card, you use a website, you use pretty much anything, Facebook, social media. There are terms of use associated with using that product or that system. These are our terms of use. If you want this system, these are the rules, and I cannot deviate from these rules unless it's one of the ones that allows you to with written instructions.
It's a really important distinction, right? Because once an agent understands that, then they understand, okay, I get Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, you have lawful rights. And yet, if we're going to use MLS, let me explain what needs to happen here, because some of those are going to be slightly modified in to our benefit or to your benefit for the use of MLS.
And I gave the lawyer example earlier. I wish I could think of a specific, but you instruct your lawyer to do something. Maybe it's not law. Maybe it's a lawful instruction, but if it's contrary to the Bar Association or Law Society requirements, they're going to say, no, I can't do that.
Yeah. Richard Larondo is asking, can we have an example of it? I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Can we have an example of a title search where the registered owner on title would require additional information from LODA? I'm assuming it's LODA records or land title records. Can you think of one?
It's not really, gang, I don't know. I've never done a search of the LODA registry. It's not something that I normally deal with.
Let's move on to that one.
Yeah.
So
sorry, Richard.
Yeah. Kevin Brown's asking a question. It's an interesting one too. The signed IRDPO restricts buyers' offers from being presented until a future date. How does the IDRIPO restrict a seller from preparing an offer to a buyer prior to that date? Is there any point in language inside this document?
Good God.
Yeah, it's
what? Okay, you know what? This is why it's so complicated changing rules, because you change them, you sit with a bunch of people in a room, you pass it by the lawyers, the directors, everybody, and then someone comes up with, well, what about this? You go, never thought about that one. I'll have to give that one some thought. I think, you know, if you want to be within the spirit of the rule, Kevin, it's no, you've agreed you're not going to deviate from giving everyone a chance on Tuesday night to have put their best foot forward. So I think if I were the seller's agent, Kevin, if I were you and you were in that situation and your client wanted to make an offer to a buyer, how would they even know? Because the offers that are in the pan waiting to be presented, the seller doesn't know about, and you can't tell them. So how would they know who to offer to?
Or what price to even begin to offer back down to the buyer? Like, where would that go?
Yeah. But full marks for creativity.
Yeah. Here's one. Again, this is more of just a point of reinforcing what's already been stated, Kim. So I'll just put this out there. So an anonymous attendee saying, I have a discussion with the client about an IDRIPO. They choose to sign. An offer comes in preemptively. So they ignore the instructions. And I have to present that offer. So this person is under their mindset that I must present. What happens if the seller now wants to deal with it? Maybe they came in late on the webinar, but do you want to address that?
Well, look, let's track that through the process, because I'm pretty sure that if an early offer were presented in an irrevocable situation that's been published on the Realtor Remarks, all the buyer's agents who are waiting patiently for Tuesday are very likely going to make a written complaint to the real estate board. The professional conduct committee is going to do an investigation, and it's going to take a look at that. Now, it can't obviously do anything with the seller, but it can certainly take a look at the member's conduct and decide whether or not that's a breach of Rule 4.02. And I would say that it very definitely is. Breaches of that rule right now are, creating significant fines to members. So if you are the seller's agent, listen, I want to put this nicely, or the best I can. Drive thy business, or it will drive thee. You've got to get control of your clients. Okay, be a strong agent with them. If you think that your client, your seller, is going to pull a rug out from under you, I don't even think I'd be going down this road with them. If you think they're going to change their mind, just take offers as they come in. You're a team with your client. They mustn't put you in that position. You cannot accept their instruction.
Nice. And first and foremost, that would then require to really have a full grasp and understanding of the rules which we must live by inside our membership with this board. Once you've got that, then it's easier to have a conversation with your seller when the seller says, my common law right, well, let me explain some rights around the board and MLS. But that's a different conversation. There's a great lengthy question coming in from Sean Nesbitt, so I'll read it quickly and hopefully it makes good sense. First and foremost, I'm totally down with the IDRIPO, much needed, frankly. One thing I don't understand and may need an update is in reference to the DORT. Full disclosure, they must tell you everything and that they know that might influence your decision in a transaction. 4.02D, any irrevocable direction by a seller to delay presentation of offers must be complied with by the listing brokerage. None of the specifics or terms of any offer received by the listing brokerage during the delay of presentation period may be communicated to the seller until the expiry. So the question is, expiry of the president or exceed the listing price. So I guess what he's really coming, is there something conflicting between what's required under the DORT versus the IDRIPO is really the question.
Well, firstly, the DORTS form is a BCFSA regulatory form. The IDRIPO form is a real estate board form, and I'm not seeing what the connection between the two is. One, the regulator's form says, I'm your agent or I'm not your agent, basically, doesn't it? So you're identifying, who you are to them.
And the benefits of working with me. Yeah.
Yeah. And the IDRIPO form is saying, listen, when offers come in, you're telling me you don't want to see any of them until Tuesday, that I'm supposed to collect them all, not tell you anything about these offers, and you're down with that. They're like two totally different forms.
And
Got it.
also it's within the MLS system, that it's completely within the MLS system, those listings.
Again, there's a really good point of distinction, a BCFSA requirement, and then now we're talking in the MLS system. So that it's important that we grasp that. That's certainly important. So Yin's asking, what's stopping a seller from not signing the IDRIPO? Let's say they just don't sign it. I'm going to choose I don't want to. It's my choice. But let's just put in the realtor remarks that offers are being looked at on blank date.
Well, the default of the rule is offers are presented without delay. So the blank date, let's say it's Tuesday. Let's say, Josh, you put that in your listing and you say, would like to present offers on Tuesday. If one comes in on Friday, it has to be presented unless there's an IDRIPO form filled out. So I wouldn't suggest that you put anything like that in realtor remarks. It's just going to confuse people because people read things differently. They might think that by seeing that realtor remark that it is an IDRIPO situation when it isn't. Yeah. It's either on or it's off, right? Follow the protocol to the letter if you're delaying offers. If it's not one of those situations, then you take them as they come in. And so maybe when that buyer's agent contacts you, I think it was Ian, when they contact you, say, listen, the sellers are away for the weekend. I'm tied up Monday evening. Can you leave your offer open till Tuesday, and you can send it over to me now and we'll present it then. If another offer comes in, we're going to present it at the same time. That's much different than a formal, I don't want to see anything till next Tuesday. To my mind, you guys have any different thoughts?
I mean, the one thing that I think sometimes buyers agents forget, that these sellers that you all work with do have different life schedules, and sometimes buyers agents can get quite uppity when they can't get their offer presented within 15 minutes. And you have a client who is working shifts, who can't use any technology. So you're not purposely holding off on offers, but you have no choice. So sometimes we just have to recognize that people's lives sometimes get in the way of offer presentation. It doesn't mean that the agent is trying to purposely hold off on offers. We do sometimes have to recall that all these people are just regular humans with regular human lives.
Yeah. There is this thing called scheduling the ideal time to get together to present the offer. I mean, yeah.
That's why the without delay isn't defined in the rule. That's because you could have someone 10 time zones away. And so without delay for that person is quite a lot different than everyone being in Coquitlam, right?
I'd like to see the discussion around that rule at an AGM, Kim.
Oh my God.
Listen, Chloe's asking, I understand that this is irrevocable, but what happens if my seller does sign an irrevocable DRPO and I don't have my strata documents in time? There's a delay. Can I change the goalpost on that date for presentation to maybe a day later or 2 days later so that I'm in receipt of all documents?
Not until that date's come and gone. It's irrevocable. It's written in concrete.
Got it. Yeah. Would a buyer's agent attending offer presentation via Zoom or other video conferencing satisfy the requirement of the buyer's agent's right to be in attendance during their offering? That's creative.
Yeah, you know what? I would think so. It doesn't specify in the rule. That's the thing about writing rules. I didn't know really much about this before I started at the real estate board, but you kind of grow with the job, and you can't cover every possibility in a rule. Or a law for that matter. What you try to do is you create a rule or a law that covers 9 out of 10 situations, and you deal with the one occasional one that comes up on a piecemeal basis.
Yeah, agreed. Lisa's asking if and when the multiple offers acknowledgement form comes in, are we going to be putting that in associated documents?
No, I wouldn't think so, because, or I'm going to say no, definitely not.
Yeah, because that would only go to the realtors that were involved in the presentation.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Regarding 4.02F, I see where the listing brokerage keeps all offers that were presented. Do the buyer's brokerages have to keep orphaned offers? Most of the time, buyer's agents do not forward unaccepted offers to the office.
Yeah, okay, so when you say orphaned offer, does that mean an offer you wrote for your buyer that wasn't accepted?
I'm going to assume that's what Palma meant. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so there's always been let's put our regulator hat on for a second. There's always been a requirement imposed on licensees by the regulator that any document like that must be kept on record for 7 years. Perhaps it's not been something that we've thought about all that much. I hope not, but I suspect there's a lot of people out there who just keep the accepted offer, but that offer that was signed by a buyer of yours that wasn't accepted, you keep that thing. Keep it in that buyer file for 7 years. Now, the board expects you to keep it for 1 for auditing purposes, but from a regulator's perspective, I would be keeping that for much longer than that. 7 would be my number.
Agreed. I mean, forever in my mind. I don't usually delete my files. Not anymore now that they're electronically.
But protect them, okay? Because you're responsible for the security of those files and that information. That's a different seminar for another day.
So here's a quick question. You may have covered it, but I couldn't remember. Can you use an IDRPO after a listing has been submitted? Yes, that's been answered. Sorry,
Yep.
I should have read that first.
Pull the trigger anytime you want,
Yeah.
with informed consent.
Okay, SERP's asking a question here. Could you please clarify when a signed IDRPO time present offers is 7 p.m. October 18th, 2022. All offers to be submitted to the listing agent by that time, but an agent is sending an offer at 7:30 p.m. What is reasonable time, if any, going beyond the time frame stated?
Yeah, well, the rule doesn't say, it doesn't address any of that, but if you look at it from an agency perspective, all we're saying here is no offers are going to be presented before the deadline. I would say that if an offer comes in late, and they inevitably do, don't we think that the seller would be entitled to know that? Of course. So you would immediately tell your client. Now, if they've already made a decision, it's too late, but you still have to tell them that late offer came in.
Yeah. Just a point of clarification, Diana's asking, so under the IDRPO, are we allowed to share early offers with our sellers or not?
So are you asking the question, are you allowed to share content, or are you allowed to share that you've received an offer? What's the question?
I think for Diana's,
things.
Yeah, I think for Diana's perspective, let's make the distinction of what can and cannot be shared.
So absolutely nothing about the content of the offer. When you sat down with the client and completed that direction, the IDRPO, you told them you wouldn't tell them anything about them, but you also would have asked them right there and then, would you like to know if offers are coming in that time period, perhaps? And they're like, oh yeah, we want to know. Okay, but just remember, if I tell you an offer's come in, there's nothing I can tell you other than an offer's come in. You'll see it on that date. Yeah. So that goes back to that deeper conversation again when you fill out the form.
Got it. Sean Nesbitt's coming back again just for clarification on a question I asked on his behalf earlier. So he said, sorry, I wasn't clear. Maybe fiduciary duty to tell your client everything as being the number one thing to remember as an agent, not telling them something goes against this principle. So what he's saying is my fiduciary duty is I've got to disclose everything that's pertinent to a seller. But now I've got this DRPO that's saying I can't tell them things that are pertinent to their decision making. Yeah.
Okay. So not to turn this into an agency seminar, but the common law of agency, which is what you're talking about, Sean, fiduciary duties. You can contract out of those duties with your client. You can make side agreements that normally the common law of agency would require this, but in this case, we're agreeing to something different. That's what limited dual agency was all about. Remember that form we had to get them to sign? That was contracting out of our promise that we would only be acting for sellers. Similarly, in the fine print of the listing contract, the buyer's agency contract, you'll find the words if you go look for them. Here, that's your homework. Go look for these words. It'll say in those contracts, it's not a breach of my fiduciary duty to you for me to have other sellers and other buyers. Yeah. And so this is similar to that, at least to my mind, where you've got certain agency responsibilities. That's true. But they're agreeing by using this system that in this particular case, you're going to not tell them anything about the specifics and offer till next Tuesday.
Let me switch gears just a little bit. Kevin's coming back. He's got a great question, and he's actually, I suspect he's wrapping up in this question. He's speaking on behalf of a lot of other people that have asked a similar question. So further to the strata documents question, can we please explain why the rules do not require members to be in possession of strata documents prior to the effective date of the MLC, the multiple listing contract? Proof of order is a nice gesture, but it stops members from listing knowledge with that home going live. And it's a great question.
So, yeah,
it is. And I think
yeah.
Kim actually mentioned the reason that you might see that as a more gentle approach, the current rule. What Kim mentioned was in creating these rules, causing hardship for members was something that was taken into consideration. Kim, you touched on that. You know, when you want them all to get all their strata docs together, it doesn't mean that me as regular realtor on the street wouldn't want all those strata docs right there, right at that moment. But the board is thinking of a bigger group other than Sandra. They're thinking of all the members.
Yeah, we could wave a magic wand if that's what the members wanted and make that an edict, but it would also make, I think, a lot of them very unhappy as well. That's the thing about being with these rules and being a board with 15,000 people. You just try to do your best to go right down the middle and treat everybody as fairly as you can with the interests of buyers and sellers in mind.
Here's a question coming in from Joseph Wong. Can a buyer's agent give an offer to the seller because the iDRIPO has not posted up yet when listed? How would the timing work for this signed iDRIPO? So I'm guessing what he's saying is I've got something signed by my seller. I haven't posted to associated documents. I see the listings live and I'm going to bring you an offer right now, even though you've got an iDRIPO signed, not yet posted.
Well, I would say that it's the moment that the seller instructs and signs that document, not when it appears in the system, because the system just records what is. And what is the guy agreed to that at 9 o'clock this morning. So it is an iDRIPO listing, even though that may not be reflected on the MLS system yet.
So actually, in the event of a complaint, then I guess, Sandra, in that scenario, we're going to, the dates are going to be looked at, the documents and the dates.
Time frame. Yeah, because, you know, like Kim has just said here, that's a process of the system. And for the listing agent, once the client signs that document, it's in effect, but perhaps your morning doesn't go as planned, so you don't get it loaded up fast enough. So yeah, that's going to be really important, that timing piece. But it's, if you remember, it's when the client signed it, it's in place. It's your manual piece is getting it into the MLS system within 24 hours. Yeah. But once the client signed it, whether it was that last night at 11 or this morning at 9, it's effective.
Got it. Here's a question Paul's asking, and it's making reference to BCFSA and their rules in connection or in conjunction with the ones we're talking about right now. Rule G states communicate all offers. And he's saying further, he doesn't give the full statement of it, but he's simply saying, sorry, I can't see how the iDRIPO can make this optional, even if you have a discussion with the seller. So he's saying, are we in conflict with BCFSA's rules with this new rule of ours?
I would say not, because of our the services of our good lawyer, Dan Bennett.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's got the law degree, not me.
And just to remind everybody, none of this was done by you know, the committees that got together to look at your rule of cooperation. All that was then given to lawyers to review, given to your board of directors to review. None of this was taken lightly, all of these pieces. None of it was taken lightly. And it's, you know, the lawyers have reviewed all the different moving parts that I wouldn't have the expertise to speak on.
Yeah. Herman's asking, why not just limit the buyer's agents from presenting any offer with a date prior to the specified date of receiving offers? Why does the listing agent have to be the one to withhold an offer that shouldn't have been sent early? Herman, I think I'm understanding your question. If I'm understanding it, why does the listing agent have to be the bad guy? Is that what you're making reference to? Do you want to try the answer on that?
Yeah, it's because I don't think that we can tell buyers not to write offers. We're a real estate board. There may be other things that I'm not thinking of because I'm kind of on the spot here, but there's more than one way you can attack a problem, and this is the way that we're dealing with this particular problem. It's always been focused on the seller's agent all the way through for the past 10, 12 years with all the changes that we've made. It's always been seller's agent.
Got it. Does the iDrippo apply to exclusive listings not on MLS?
I would not think so.
No, it's not in the MLS system.
Yeah.
There's your answer, Christy. Terry Wong, his question is 4.02 A and I. Offers must be presented to the seller without delay. What if an offer is received very late in the day or night?
Yeah, and so remember I said that without delay is not defined. So if you're sitting on the committee and Sandra sits on the committee and a complaint comes in that I had an offer written at 11 o'clock and the seller's agent wouldn't present it. I think the practicing realtors on the committee would go, well, that's not reasonable. So we're not going to, decide that was the without delay requirement was breached because it's not reasonable to expect that. That was the 10 time zone versus everyone in Coquitlam statement I made earlier.
Right. I gotta acknowledge we're 5 minutes down before we finish. We close this, and we probably have time for one or two more questions at best. So I'll do my best to get. There's a lot of questions that are coming in. I just want to make a point of reference for both of you. There are a lot of questions around the PDS, and there are a lot of questions around the strata documents. So it's really quite interesting. We've already talked about exclusives. If an iDrippo date passes and no offers are received, and the seller decides to reduce their price, is the previous iDrippo still in effect, or can they sign a new iDrippo with a subsequent review date and lower price?
Yeah, when that date comes and goes, it's over. It's gone. That instruction has died through the passage of time, and you can pull a trigger on a new one.
Okay.
With whatever other changes you want to make, or just say, well, let's hope an offer comes in at some point.
Anita's asking, how about if before the presentation date where there's an iDrippo signed, the seller said that one of their friends or relatives wants to purchase the property. Seller wants to sell it to them without seeing any other offers. Should they cancel the listing altogether?
Well, we wouldn't accept the cancellation before that date comes and goes.
Yeah.
So then they would need to be checking with a lawyer because there'd be commission situation.
Thank you, Sandra. That's the one. Go talk to a lawyer on that one. That's altogether different. Jordy's just making a point here. The DORTS does not have a time frame on full disclosure. Maybe it's a statement. It's not a question.
Okay.
Yep, we'll leave it there.
I got
Go
time. I got time if there's some burning question that they need to ask. I don't mind staying on. That's fine.
Yep.
Well, for the record, I can too. I got nowhere to go but lunch later on. So I'm happy to do this all day long. There's a lot of really good questions in here. So, okay. Does signing an iDrippo on receipt of an offer isn't an issue? No, sorry, never mind. That's not the question I want. If the offers as they come accepted by the seller, is there an option for a new form on the iDrippo? Tina, I think what I'm hearing you say is if you're not signing an iDrippo right out of the gate, you're taking offers as they come, but then the seller wants to sign an iDrippo, can they, Kim?
Yes, they absolutely can. So the way that would work, Tina, is you take a listing and you go, let's just take offers as they come in, and then your phone starts blowing up. And it looks like you've got a whole bunch of people really interested. You might go to your seller at that point and go, look, let's make this a more formal situation and pull the trigger on an iDrippo.
Okay. All right. I'm going to close this just on a comment more than anything. I know that you both have agreed to stay, but I don't think that's something we should probably do as a general habit. So I'll say this. So Jeff, I like Jeff's suggestion. Kim, I'm sure this is going to be fun for you to answer. It's not a question really. Why don't we just call the rules of cooperation terms of use?
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, never say never.
Never say never. On that note, here's what I'd like to say. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Sandra. They're a wonderful webinar, and there's so many more questions that have yet to be answered. So I see a lot of content for Ethics Guy columns in the future, and potentially
More
even
videos.
Or videos, or potentially even maybe a few more webinars specific to the questions that have been pooled inside here. If anybody in here has feedback, if any of the members have feedback or would like to hear some other topics discussed by your board, please let us know. There's going to be a survey coming your way by email, so fill it out. Let us know what your thoughts are. I'd like to also mention some other upcoming events that will be of interest to you. Tomorrow, Wednesday, there is an in-person Reviving Vancouver's Downtown Core at the Terminal City Club. On Tuesday, October 25th, the board will be having their very first YPN, that's the Young Professional Network, Fall Social at 1 Under Golf Vancouver. And then go to courses and events in the calendar, in our events calendar, to register for any of those events. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Have a great day. And don't forget, you can see a recording of this event in our past recordings in your member portal. In a couple of days, I suspect it'll be loaded.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much. I must admit to have been a little nervous at the start. You probably noticed that, everybody.
Nope, it didn't show.
Well, I was. But anyway, Golly, I really hope we've helped explain this to you. And just remember, we're trying to make things better for you and reduce pain points and member aggravation. That's the thinking when we make these changes.
Sounds wonderful.
And the only thing I would like to say is I really appreciate that so many of you took time from your days. So many of you did to hear this. So really appreciate that.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you, board. And
Thanks,
have a great day, everybody.
Bye.